Hello, AP Latin students. Happy Monday to you all. We're going to go over Caesar's De Bello Gallico 5.40 today. So here we go. So letters are sent immediately to Caesar from Cicero with great prizes having been offered or put forward if they should carry them through. Okay? With all the roads or all the ways having been blocked, those sent are intercepted. Okay? Couple things to notice in here. You'll notice Caesar puts the verb right up front, so it says they are sent, and you get that action right away. And then you don't find out till later on what was actually sent, these letters. All right. Then you've got ad Caesarum, accusative placed to which, ab Cicerone, ablative of agent. Then you have the ablative absolute with the great rewards offered. And then you have this interesting condition, which, as your book tells you, it is a condition that's gone into indirect statement. So what's happened there is that pluperfect subjunctive is standing in for, if it were a regular condition, it would be a future perfect indicative. But since it's kind of like an implied indirect statement, like, hey, if you guys carry these, if you succeed in carrying these letters, you will receive these rewards. Okay? And then we've got another ablative absolute with all the ways besieged or blocked. Okay? And the next sentence, at night, at night, fully 120 towers are constructed from the material, from the wood, which they had collected for the sake of fortification. And then, sorry, they are all those things are constructed with incredible speed. Okay, lightning speed. Those things which seemed to be lacking from, or to be absent from, the work. So those things are completed, or are finished. All right? So they're building these massive towers for their fortifications at night from the material. And you'll notice here incredible speed, happens quick, in the words of Coach Cash. Nice ablative of manner. Okay, and then you've got the operi, as they mentioned down below, is dative with that compound verb de esse. Okay, that to be absent from. And then I found this note here on these towers. It's kind of interesting. This is from the Dickinson college commentaries about the turres. They say, these were open at the sides and behind, solidly timbered towards the enemy, and their object was, like that of the modern bastion, to shorten the length of wall to be occupied by the defense, as well as to give the soldiers a still higher position from which to throw their missiles. In this case, they were probably not more than 3 stories or perhaps 30 feet high. Each story was floored with a platform on which the soldiers stood. The front and sides of each platform were protected by a parapet, which is the word lorikai, of hurdles to the height of about 4 feet. Above this projected a sort of battlement of stakes, which is the pinai, or of hurdles standing erect, with spaces at intervals through which the spears were hurled. The structure was square, of about 10 feet on a side. Of these towers, it appears that on the first night only the framework was erected. On succeeding nights, they were completed. Okay, so this is just a little note there on the toures, kind of what that's, what they're building. These Roman soldiers are building in their camp. All right. Okay, next page. The enemy on the following day, with a much greater troops, or with a much larger forces having been gathered. So the enemy attack the camp. They fill in the ditch. Okay, and the ditch there, Romans would dig a ditch around their camp as kind of an extra measure of protection there. Okay, couple things. So ablative of time with a postero die, and then you have the ablative absolute with a greater forces having been compelled or having been gathered, and that multo. In English, we'd probably say with much greater forces having been gathered, but literally what it is with forces greater by much. It's what's called an ablative of degree of difference. So it's literally greater by much. That's why it's multo and not like Maltese there, agreeing with Copies. That's why it's that multo. All right. And notice there the ascendaton as well. So the enemy, they get all their people together, they attack, they fill in the ditch. Okay, so everything is happening very kind of rapidly here. Okay. By the same manner in which or with which, and then kind of understood, they resisted on the day before, or by which they resisted on the day before, it is resisted by our men. Okay, so you've got an ablative of probably a manner there, with ratione, and then qua, referring back to the ratione, and then the resistator you kind of have to understand, in that little qua pridie, and then you actually get the resistator. Notice there it is also a kind of being used impersonally. It is resisted by our men. Okay. And then this same thing successively happens on the remaining days. Okay, so it kind of just keeps going on and on like this. The enemy keeps attacking the camp. The Romans keep holding them back the kind of the same way. All right. No part of the night time is let pass, and then we'd probably say from work or from labor. Okay, Another translation here, and I use this one a lot, the St. John's one. They say no. Oh, where was it? No part of the nighttime is left free from work. Okay. You'll notice there it is actually ad laborem, so it's like to work. The idea here, though, is that the Romans are working all through the night. They don't even take the night off to rest for the next day. They just keep on working even through the night. All right. And then not for the sick, not for the wounded, is the opportunity of rest given. Okay, so not to the sick, not to the wounded. Those would be datives there. Okay, so even those that are injured, those that are sick, they're still doing their part to protect the camp as best they can. Okay, and then next little bit here, quaecumque, and those things whatsoever, and then are necessary for the fighting, for the attack of the next day. So those things whatsoever are necessary for the attack of the next day are prepared at night. And then many stakes having been sharpened, or excuse me, I apologize, having been burnt on the end, and that burning, as they tell you down below, makes the wood harder. Okay, so that's why they take those stakes and kind of burn them on the end. You may remember back in the story, this is kind of a bit of a sidetrack, but back in the story with Polyphemus, Odysseus takes a stake and kind of sharpens it off in the fire and then plunges it into Polyphemus's eye. So, yeah, it's hardening wood with fire. It's a long-standing tradition. Okay, so many stakes having been having been burned at one end. A great number of mural javelins, which they tell you is a heavy javelin thrown from the top of the wall. So a great number of mural javelins is prepared. Okay, so a great number is prepared. And then we've got towers are built up. The parapets and breastworks are woven from wickerwork. Okay, so they're getting all these different spears, all these different weapons together. They're crafting their defenses. They're just doing all this sorts of stuff. They're doing it all at night too, which is kind of crazy. All right. Cicero himself, although he was of a very delicate, a very thin health. Okay, so in other words, his health was very poor. All right, and they tell you down below it's an ablative of description. Okay, so he was of a very, very poor health. So Cicero himself did not even leave the nighttime for himself to rest or for rest. Okay, so their commander was he was working all through the night as well, so that he was compelled. Moreover, by the onset and the voices of the soldiers to spare himself. Okay, so I think the idea there is he is just working himself, basically working himself to death, and his soldiers have to come and kind of gather around and talk him down a little bit to make sure that he is takes care of himself. I think that's kind of the idea what you've got going on there. Okay, so a couple things in that last sentence. That cum clause is a nice example of a cum adversative. Okay, so although he was of a very slim health. And then you've got this ut clause, which is a result. Okay, so what was the result of him leaving no time, or not even leaving the nighttime? The result was that he was compelled to spare himself by these, basically by the advice and so forth of his soldiers. Okay? All right, so that's 540. We will do 541 for tomorrow. Also, we need to do a test as well. So I think we're gonna have a test on Thursday. And if that does not work out for you, if that's a bad day, please let me know as soon as possible. But I think that's what we'll do. We'll have a test on Thursday, and it'll cover the material that we've been going over since we got back from break and all that. Okay, so yeah, do 541 for tomorrow, and we'll do a test on Thursday. Okay, and love you guys. Hope you guys are doing well, and I'll talk to you later.